Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this video of Poststructuralism, which is the fourth video in the series after Derrida. Paulde, 1919 to 1983, born Paul Adolphe Michel Dimon, was a Bulgarian-born literary critic and literary theorist. It is never the binary opposition of either or, but rather the impasse of the undecidability, the simultaneity of the incompatible either or is what is the contribution of Paulde. Indeed, deconstruction is the recognition of this impasse. For as Derrida puts it, deconstruction is the testing of the impossible. Paulde, being the student of Derrida, in fact, continues this phenomena of deconstruction. Writing on literature, Paulde, possibly the most influential deconstructive literary critic of his generation, argued for rhetorical reading. Dimon argued that there was no referential language because all signifiers referred not to a reality out there but to other signifiers. All language is, in one sense, figurative because it refers to more and more words rather than reality. The linguistic sign is a set of conflict, ambivalence, and instability. Looking at the literary texts and their language, Dimon argued that the literal meaning of a text is often deconstructed and contradicted by its figural meaning. Dimon took this line of thinking further, showing how even the so called non literary language like law, economics, used tropes and figurative language just like literature. What was demonstrating was that when a text seeks to persuasive and objective is then it relies on fictional tropes and figures. Thus, the text is self deconstructive, where the literal level is subverted by the figural. This makes all texts undecidable in their meaning, irrespective of literature or no. And so, rhetorical reading pays attention to the limits of interpretation in Dimon. Even before we set out to interpret a text, we have decided what interpretation is. In this sense, we are a part of a process already in place even before we embark upon it. When Demon reads, he suggests that critical practice, however rigorous, takes recourse to the very tropes and figures it hopes to unravel. Thus, when we assume a binary, like form and content in a literary work, we assume that form and content constitute meaning. And the task of the interpreter is to either look at form, if one is a structuralist, for example, or to look at the content, if it is a romantic, for example. We cannot think beyond form and content as basis for interpretation. Dimon's example serves well for to understand this aporia of criticism. This is a word that is contributed by Dimon. Aporia. Aporia is indecisive or indecidability of meaning. So aporia of criticism is suggested by Paul Dimon. Reading Proust, Dimon argues that his um, Dimon's reading is facilitated by what the text itself provides. He writes, the reading is not our reading, since it uses only the linguistic elements provided by the text itself. The distinction between the author and the reader is one of the false distinctions that the reading makes evident. The distinction or the deconstruction is not something we have added to the text, but it constituted it in the first place, in itself. A literary text simultaneously asserts and denies the authority of its own rhetorical mode, and by reading the text, as we did, we were only trying to come closer to being as rigorous a reader as the author had to be in order to write the sentence in the first place. Did you get that? That is what is called as aporia of criticism. We are coming closer and closer to the text in every reading of the text. What one can write about a particular piece of writing or a text is made possible by the conditions of the text or the writing itself, according to Paul Deman. Another very interesting figure in deconstructive reading is J. Hillis Miller. born in 1928, died very recently on February 7th, 2021, Joseph Hillis Miller Jr. was an American literary critic and scholar who advanced the theories of literary deconstruction. Miller's first major deconstructive essay is The Critic as a Host, which is a response to M.H. Abrams' The Deconstructive Angel, in which Abrams attacked the deconstructive strategy of leaving a text undecidability. A colleague of Hartman at Yale and one of the central figures of American deconstruction, Hillis Miller's reading of Victorian fiction and poetry have been exemplary. Miller remains his best and best known writing on this subject through his essay, The Critic as Host. In this essay, Miller begins what would become a standard deconstructive move, a problem of words and their meaning. If a citation C from a text B occurs within a text A, is that citation parasitic upon the main text A? Is the actual question. Or is it the main text A limits that determines the citation C? Miller argues that citation C and text A constitute in fact each other. When Abrams and other detractors treat deconstruction as parasitic on the main text, they ignore the fact that the text deconstructs itself, which is very important. With these etymological terms, deconstruction is a part of every text. For this purpose, he turns to the figure and etymology of parasite. And so, etymologically, he says that parasite will have two interesting words. Para of the term means besides the grain, and site, which comes from cytopes or food. Thus, a parasite, Miller notes, was originally something positive. It is one who shares your food as your fellow guest. Host often takes as the opposite of guest. He is the one on whom the parasite preys. The host is the food who gets eaten, the one who biologically, medically is the host to the parasite. But the word host etymologically means guest and stranger. It is also connected to hostess, that means enemy or stranger. Thus, the one to offer hospitality, that is host, is also a stranger, and the one you see as unwanted guest, parasite, is also a fellow guest. Do you get that? And so, with this, with this etymological game, Miller is able to demonstrate how meanings of words are sometimes antithetical and therefore unstable. As he puts it, the uncanny antithetical relation exists not only between the pairs of words in the system, host and parasite, host and guest, but also within each word itself. We cannot rely on this or that the meaning of the word. What deconstruction does is to point to these crises of meaning within the heart of any word, where the heart itself is made of many. Thus, to argue that deconstruction is parasitic on the main text, as M.H. Abrams puts it, is to ignore the condition that the host text, what Miller terms narrative, is itself a stranger, an enemy. It is the deconstructive figure that hosts the narrative. Getting it? And so, Miller Miller's work has relied on such close readings as Tennyson, Hardy, Dickens in order to reveal how every text's internal logic collapses upon examination because language is forever highly slippery. With this, we come to the end of the discussion of deconstruction. Thank you very much for being a part of this video. Bye till the next video.